Welcome to the show, The Antithesis, aka Education Made Visible. Come with me. Shh, class is in session.
As a guest host, we have Roynell Young, founder and CEO of Provision, an all-male charter school that is pioneering the return of trade certification training. Tell us more about Provision.
Well, Provision now is celebrating 22 years of service to the Houston community.
Wow.
And it started out as one of those unintended pursuits, and it was an after-school program. And shortly after that, in 1995, we were one of the first HISD charters.
Wow.
Dr. Page came to us and expressed that they were losing primarily African-American young men.
And Dr. Page is,
Yeah.
who is
He was the former head of HISD and Secretary of Education at the time. He was distressed about the lack of engagement of African-American young men. He told me specifically, he said, Roy, we have a group of young men that we are undereducating or we have failed to educate, and if you guys would consider, I would like you to come in and provide some of the services that I've been hearing about. And so that was the first initial entry into the whole field of education. I like to say that I'm not an educator, so I've come at it from a totally different perspective, but I value those who are. So I had a totally different perspective on what was needed to engage those young men. Those young men, when we were after school program, the same teachers that taught during the day would come over and volunteer and would be amazed and say, this is not the same child in my class, he's the troublemaker.
What were you doing differently?
Well, one of the things we stumbled on, and later was validated through my readings, was that everything and every human being needs a connection. They need a connection to other human beings and to be connected to something much larger than themselves. And so in terms of boys, you always have a pecking order, the alpha male, and then everyone else finds their place beneath that. So we engage young men in adventure, service, and oddly enough, they responded resoundingly. And so we now find ourselves on a 21-acre campus, of which we have a urban farm, a nature trail obstacle course,
Awesome.
and a lot of other things that we're trying not only to engage those young men, but to engage the community, because from healthy habits come healthy people, and then you can have a healthy community.
That's right.
And
Healthy
so
families.
that's
Now,
what we're
tell us-
attempting to do.
Tell us about some of your plans or your dreams in terms of offering other options to young men, just besides college. I mean, college is one of those things, but...
Yeah, well, you have to understand our philosophy and who we are targeting. We fondly say that we're a school of second chances.
Okay.
Many of the students who come to us, most educational institutions would shy away from. We have some students who are 2 or 3 grade levels behind in some cases, all grade levels behind. I recently had a 6th grader who read on below a 1st grade level.
Wow.
But the good news is that within 8 months he was right around the 5th grade level. Can't keep a smile off his face.
Wow.
And,
So
and
what do you do differently? I
Well,
would like to know that.
well, the first, I think with education, and I hate you taking me down this philosophical because that's what I love. I can philosophize and blow hot air all day. But most of what is missing, and what we understand, is that we don't have a magic. I'm the mad scientist where I can screw the top of the head off and force knowledge in.
That's what she does.
Part of the challenge of education, public education, is that we have constituents who are not buying what we're selling, and so in order to get For example, I recently, and I've been doing it for the last 30 years, haven't gotten there, but when I decided I wanted to lose weight, right?
Talk to me about
That's a deep-seated declaration and something that I've made deep within me in order for me to now act it out. Well, what we do initially when every young man comes in is that we engage them not only about education, but about who they are as a person, as a human being, and we try to go back and put together all those variables that would drive the educational process in terms of the dynamics between father and mother and siblings and all of those issues, and then try to play a little bit of an investigator to figure out, okay, how can we find out what is so important to this young person that they will not risk losing come hell or high water. It's so important to me, and that could vary. But what is that thing that when it comes down to that, man, I don't want to lose it. It could
take interest in the child.
Well, it goes a bit beyond taking interest, but in fact, we embrace the idea. When I'm proud to say I'll be 55 in December. So I grew up in a time where I was my father's remote control. You know, we only had 3 channels, but I was his remote control. We're no longer living in the Mr. Rogers age.
No.
Our kids are impatient because many parents who are raising them are impatient.
That's true.
And so what we have to do then is take them through another paradigm that would suggest to them that everyone has a significant purpose and a value. Everyone wants to be valued and know that they matter.
Yeah.
And so all of that said, that drives the educational process. Yes. Now I can get a young man who was not reading on grade level would come because of the trust, and then he would say to me, I'm willing to do my part, and his part is the effort part.
Wow. And so
the skill set is easy, but the effort.
What has happened recently in our culture is that we have focused a lot on college bound for everyone.
Right.
We've created a college culture.
Right.
And what has that done for some of the young men, or young men like the young men in your program?
Well, you know what? I was too mesmerized by the elixir of everyone has to be college bound. But I don't think that's real, and I don't think it's fair. I often say, and what changed my mind is that I had a young man years ago who had no interest in English or much of math, but I went to his house one day and found out his father was a mechanic. And I was so impressed because his troublemaker at school, he knew how to change an engine in a car.
Wow.
And so when I found that out, I found out his hot button. Now, it drove the other areas of education. It made it practical. It made it real. And so for me, I don't think that we're doing a service when we say that everyone has to go to college. I think the challenge is, for example, Switzerland. I mean, many folk in Switzerland, they have a fifth of their students who actually go to college. They have 20% who go on to secondary education. And and this is a country that is highly productive. And when most of the students, though, end up in apprenticeships. Now, when you hear apprenticeships, you think blue collar.
Right.
But the bankers over in Switzerland and other professionals are doing apprenticeships. And so they've been able to figure out and tap into their child's interests, aptitude.
What they're good at.
And then they begin to shape that and take away some of the other stuff. I interview too many folk who come to me who are possessing a piece of paper and are not proficient.
Exactly.
And so, and speaking of that, one of the stories that we're looking at today is about PhDs. There is an exploding number of PhDs right now who can't find jobs and who are now on food stamps.
Or other forms of public assistance.
Forms of public assistance.
Right.
Well, you know what? I once read that education is the igniting of a fire, not the filling of a bucket. I think we've turned this whole thing of education in college into a swap meet. Where, you know, I go to school, I take this piece of paper, and then I go and shop it around and see where I can get the highest bidder, regardless if I'm proficient or what that, because in the past what that meant is that you were proficient. But I think a larger problem is that we have to define, is it training or is it education? Those are two different commodities.
Now, and then here's another story that's also very interesting, is that as we are pushing children more and more and more to go to college, the cost of college is rising. And just recently, the Republicans in Congress decided to vote against the bill to keep the interest rate of student loans down. So even the interest rates are rising on this, while we're also still pushing people to go to college. But I believe in college. I'm not against that.
No, I think what we teach young people and tell young people at Provision is that you don't have to go to college. But in this 21st century economy, you have to have something. Right. You have to have a 2-year degree, a certification. You have to have something that you can not only take care of yourself, but your family. And what we're taking a look at are those other areas that are often looked down on, frowned on. I often say, if you're riding in the desert and your car breaks down, who do you want, a PhD in philosophy or a mechanic with a 3rd grade education?
And that's a good place for us to dismiss class. Thank you, Roynell, for joining us as a guest host.
For 2 weeks.
Thank you also for joining us, and class dismissed. Good night.